Picture this. You're at a party, and someone asks you about your music collection. You proudly announce you're a rock fan, but when pressed for specifics, you fumble for words. It's like claiming to love great literature but only having read comic books. The truth is, being a real rock enthusiast means more than just knowing the hits. It means understanding the albums that shaped generations, challenged societal norms, and redefined what music could be. These 23 albums aren't just collections of songs, they're cultural monuments that every serious rock fan must experience. Whether you discovered rock through classic radio or stumbled into it via streaming playlists, these records will fill the gaps in your musical education and give you the credibility to hold your own in any conversation about rock's greatest achievements. Arguably Led Zeppelin's finest moment, this was the record with the perfect blend of what made them one of the greatest bands of all time. Pure rock and roll thrills, literally, on track 2, gentle folk and bulldozing hard rock, and, of course, in the case of Stairway to Heaven, all three in one song, complete with probably the greatest guitar solo of all time. This album doesn't have an official title, but who needs one when you've got 4 mystical symbols representing each band member? From the thunderous opening of Black Dog, to the epic journey of Stairway to Heaven, this record showcases Led Zeppelin at their absolute peak. The diversity here is stunning. You get the hard-hitting rock anthems, the delicate acoustic moments, and everything in between. Essentially, a faultless album. Even casual music fans know Stairway to Heaven, but experiencing it within the context of this complete album reveals its true power as the centerpiece of rock's greatest artistic statement. It's hardly surprising that The Dark Side of the Moon tops our list of the most essential classic rock albums. It is frequently listed as one of the greatest albums of all time and is one of Pink Floyd's most popular albums among fans and critics alike. An immediate success, the album topped the Billboard chart and remained in the charts for 741 weeks, from 1973 to 1988. It is Pink Floyd's most commercially successful album, and with an estimated 50 million copies sold, is one of the best-selling albums of all time. This isn't just an album, it's a complete sensory experience that explores themes of mental illness, mortality, and the human condition. The seamless flow from track to track creates a cohesive journey that's meant to be experienced as a whole. Every sound effect, every guitar solo, every haunting vocal line serves the greater narrative. The production techniques were revolutionary for their time, and the album's influence can be heard in countless rock records that followed. You haven't truly experienced progressive rock until you've listened to this masterpiece from start to finish in complete darkness. The last music recorded by the band with Sir George Martin, Abbey Road, was created in a far from ideal environment for the Fab Four. Tensions within the band were high and Lennon proposed splitting the A and B sides between him and McCartney. Nevertheless, things came together, literally, for both principal songwriters, while George Harrison contributed 2 of his best ever songs in The Shape of Something and Here Comes the Sun. This album represents the Beatles at their most sophisticated, combining their pop sensibilities with experimental rock elements. Side 2's medley remains one of the most ambitious pieces in rock history, weaving multiple song fragments into a cohesive whole. The production quality set new standards for how rock albums could sound, while songs like Come Together showed the band's ability to create groove-based rock that influenced countless future artists. Even though the band was falling apart during recording, their musical chemistry remained magical. Abbey Road proves that great art often emerges from conflict and tension. If Led Zeppelin 4 represents rock's grandest aspirations, then Exile on Main Street captures its grittiest reality. Recorded in a basement in France while the Stones were in tax exile, this double album sounds exactly like what it is, a bunch of rock and roll outlaws making music for survival. The production is deliberately murky and rough, but that's exactly what makes it so compelling. You can practically taste the sweat, drugs, and desperation that went into every track. Songs like Rocks Off and Tumbling Dice epitomize the Stones' ability to blend blues, country, and rock into something uniquely their own. This album doesn't try to impress you with technical wizardry or conceptual depth. It just rocks with an authenticity that few albums have ever matched. It's messy, chaotic, and absolutely essential for understanding what rock and roll is really about at its core. Rock at its purest and most raucous, Back in Black is AC/DC's most cohesive album, as well as perhaps its most important. It showed the world that the band had a future despite the tragic death of its legendary original lead singer, Bon Scott. Brian Johnson's pipes filled the part nicely, doing Scott plenty of justice and serving as the voice of the band's most famous song, this album's title track. 10 songs of pure rock and roll. AC/DC's first album with Brian Johnson on vocals after the tragic death of frontman Bon Scott is a masterpiece from start to finish. It's essential rock listening and features tracks that are still AC/DC staples such as You Shook Me All Night Long and Shoot to Thrill. And there's no better album opener than Hell's Bells. This album proves that sometimes simplicity is genius. Every riff is memorable, every chorus is anthemic, and every song serves the greater purpose of delivering maximum rock impact. The guitar tone alone has influenced decades of hard rock bands, and the album's commercial success proved that heavy music could dominate the mainstream without compromising its edge. Before The Who became known primarily for their explosive live performances and rock operas, they created this masterpiece that perfectly balances their experimental tendencies with their instinct for powerful rock anthems. Baba O'Riley and Won't Get Fooled Again have become stadium rock classics, but they're supported by equally strong deep cuts that showcase the band's range. Pete Townshend's use of synthesizers was groundbreaking for a rock band at the time, creating textures that complemented rather than competed with their trademark power chord assault. Roger Daltrey's vocals soar with confidence and aggression, while Keith Moon's drumming provides the barely controlled chaos that makes everything feel alive and dangerous. John Entwistle's bass work anchors it all with precision and power. This album captures The Who at the perfect moment when they had fully developed their sound but hadn't yet become prisoners of their own reputation. It's essential listening for understanding how rock could be both intellectually ambitious and viscerally exciting. Despite the band's interpersonal turmoil and strife at the time of its recording, Rumours is Fleetwood Mac's most successful album. It reached the top of the US Billboard chart and the UK Albums Chart and, in 1978, received the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. To date, Rumours has sold over 40 million copies worldwide, receiving diamond certifications in the US, Canada, and Australia. Mick Fleetwood has called the album the most important album we ever made, because the success it garnered allowed the group to continue recording for years to come. This album proves that the best art often comes from the worst personal circumstances. While the band members were going through divorces and breakups with each other, they channeled that emotional turmoil into some of the most perfect pop rock songs ever written. Go Your Own Way, Don't Stop, and Dreams have become timeless classics because they capture universal feelings of love, loss, and hope with incredible precision. The harmonies are pristine, the production is flawless, and every song serves the emotional journey of the album. With a band with as many albums as Fleetwood Mac, picking a single record isn't easy, but it's hard to see past 1977's Rumours. It's the band's most famous album for good reason thanks to songs like Dreams, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way and The Chain, but there's so much more. Often considered one of the greatest albums of all time, and cementing Jimi Hendrix's status as the original guitar hero, Are You Experienced remains a significant milestone in the history of rock music over 50 years since its release. Recording for the album was done in between a busy schedule of live performances, though the trio notoriously laid down entire tracks with minimal fuss. Most notably, The Wind Cries Mary was reportedly recorded in a single take, having only been written the night before by Hendrix. It's estimated that the album cost no more than £1,500 to produce. This debut album didn't just introduce the world to Jimi Hendrix, it completely redefined what the electric guitar could do. Every track showcases different aspects of Hendrix's revolutionary approach to the instrument, from the feedback-drenched Purple Haze to the tender beauty of The Wind Cries Mary. The production captures the raw power of his live performances while adding studio textures that enhance the psychedelic experience. Songs like Hey Joe and Foxy Lady became instant classics, but the entire album flows like a guided tour through Hendrix's musical universe. For any rock fan interested in understanding guitar innovation, this album is absolutely essential. It's the point where rock guitar moved from rhythm accompaniment to lead art form. Released in August 1975, Born to Run was Bruce Springsteen's third album and undoubtedly his breakthrough release. A critical and commercial success in the US, it broke the top 10 in its second week and peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart. Born to Run made 2 subsequent returns to the Billboard chart. Once in 1980 after the release of The River and again after the success of Born in the USA in 1985. It is frequently listed as one of the greatest albums of all time, and comes in at number 2 on our list of the top 10 most essential classic rock albums. This album captures the essence of American rock and roll better than perhaps any other record ever made. Springsteen paints vivid pictures of small-town dreams and big-city aspirations, backed by arrangements that are both epic and intimate. The title track alone is worth the price of admission. It's a 3-minute distillation of everything rock music can be at its most passionate and desperate. Thunder Road, and 10th Avenue Freeze Out showcase Springsteen's storytelling abilities, while tracks like She's the One prove he could rock as hard as anyone. The production by Jon Landau gives everything a bigger-than-life quality without sacrificing the human emotions at the album's core. This is the album that established Springsteen as rock's premier poet of the American experience. With sales to date at over 12.5 million copies, it's no surprise that The Doors makes our list of the top 10 most essential classic rock albums. Released in January 1967, the self-titled album featured the breakthrough single Light My Fire, and quickly climbed the charts, ultimately reaching number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart. In Europe, the band waited years for similar recognition. Light My Fire stalled at number 49 on the UK singles chart and the album failed to chart at all. But in 1991, after the release of Oliver Stone's film The Doors, a reissue of the song reached number 7 on the singles chart and the album charted at number 43. Despite its relative lack of early success in Europe, the album continually ranks on greatest albums lists worldwide by the likes of Rolling Stone, Q Magazine, and NME. No band captured the dark side of the 1960s counterculture quite like The Doors, and this debut album remains their definitive statement. Jim Morrison's poetry and theatrical vocals create an atmosphere of danger and sexuality that was revolutionary for its time. Light My Fire became the hit, but deeper cuts like The End and Break On Through show the band's willingness to explore psychological and musical territories that other groups wouldn't dare touch. Ray Manzarek's keyboard work creates haunting textures that complement Robbie Krieger's innovative guitar playing, while John Deensmore's drumming provides the perfect rhythmic foundation for Morrison's verbal gymnastics. This album proved that rock could be intellectual, dangerous, and commercially successful all at the same time. Nowhere was this new sound better illustrated than on the band's take of the Kinks' classic You Really Got Me. A song they'd been covering for years in the clubs, it took on new dimensions in the studio. The guitar tones were both monstrous and majestic at the same time. Rolling out his vintage Marshalls and plugging in his hot-rodded Stratocaster, Edward provided an early glimpse of what he would call his brown sound. Roth might not have had the most technically perfect voice in the world, but ultimately, what lifted the album was Edward Van Halen himself. The guitarist redefined the very vocabulary of what a rock guitarist could do. If there was one track that instantly placed the guitarist in the pantheon of greats, it was Eruption, his spontaneous two-handed tapping instrumental masterpiece. It showcased a technique that would initially mystify and ultimately mesmerize every guitar player who heard it. This album didn't just introduce Van Halen to the world. It completely changed what hard rock could sound like. Eddie Van Halen's guitar innovations made every other rock guitarist obsolete overnight, while David Lee Roth's charismatic vocals and stage presence redefined what a rock frontman could be. The band took simple hard rock structures and supercharged them with technical virtuosity that never sacrificed fun for showing off. Songs like Runnin' with the Devil and Jamie's Cryin' became instant classics, but it's the 2-minute guitar showcase, Eruption, that truly revolutionized rock music. Originally rejected by nearly every record label, this record-breaking debut wrote the book on AOR rock. While Black Sabbath's debut album invented heavy metal, Paranoid perfected it. This album contains more classic metal anthems than most bands manage in entire careers. Paranoid, Iron Man, War Pigs, and Fairies Wear Boots have all become genre-defining classics. Tony Iommi's guitar work here established the blueprint for heavy metal riffing, with its combination of power, darkness, and memorable hooks. Ozzy Osbourne's vocals perfectly balance melody with menace, while the rhythm section of Geezer Butler and Bill Ward provides the thunderous foundation that makes everything feel earth-shaking. The lyrics deal with war, mental illness, and social alienation, themes that would become heavy metal staples. But what makes this album truly special is how it manages to be both incredibly heavy and surprisingly catchy. These aren't just heavy songs, they're great songs that happen to be heavy. Every rock fan needs to understand where metal came from, and this album is Patient Zero. Without Paranoid, we wouldn't have had Metallica, Iron Maiden, or any of the countless metal bands that followed. Few albums have had as immediate and lasting an impact on popular culture as Nevermind. When it knocked Michael Jackson's Dangerous off the top of the charts, it announced that a new generation had arrived and they had their own soundtrack. Kurt Cobain's songwriting perfectly captured the angst and alienation of Generation X, while the band's punk-influenced sound made alternative rock accessible to mainstream audiences. Smells Like Teen Spirit became an instant anthem, but the entire album maintains that same level of intensity and emotional honesty. Butch Vig's production strikes the perfect balance between the band's punk roots and commercial appeal. It's polished enough for radio but raw enough to maintain its credibility. Songs like In Bloom, Come As You Are, and Lithium showcase Cobain's ability to write melodies that stick in your head while dealing with heavy emotional subject matter. This album didn't just change rock music, it changed popular culture itself. Every rock fan needs to understand this pivotal moment when alternative became mainstream and punk attitude conquered the world. No band has ever combined technical virtuosity, theatrical ambition, and pure rock power quite like Queen, and this album represents their creative peak. Bohemian Rhapsody alone would secure